Felix and Alexis join me at the table now. Alexis, tell me about that song.
Melody of Love.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's because you just mentioned Bathful of Ecstasy. I was confused about which one you were talking about.
Well, the one you just performed,
yes.
of course.
Yes. The cereal milk song.
Yes,
Okay.
of course. Yes, yeah. The original title was "You Owe Me $10 Million."
Melody of Love started out as a very long, mainly instrumental track that Joe had been working on at his studio, and it featured the same kind of gospel sample that's in the finished track. We then took it to a studio in London, and I wrote lots of the words, and we all recorded live together and made this new version of the song, which is close to what you hear on the finished record. I was kind of talking about, I suppose, the challenges people face when being alive today.
Like what?
Maybe feeling pretty pessimistic about things at times, with people like Trump in power, Brexit happening in the UK, and there being a relatively kind of right-wing sort of emergence of popularity, I suppose, with right-wing groups, and it feeling like, as well as that, we're not in the best place looking after the planet. But despite all of those incredibly heavy things, maybe some personal things that happen in your life affect you, and some music that you work on or make or listen to, if you're just a fan of music, or some connection to other people, can at least be a momentary respite from those rather depressing things. So that's what the song was getting at.
Do you feel like, maybe Felix, this is a better question for you, but like, do you feel like, not that there's some responsibility, but that maybe there is, like in a time like this, to have your music reach out to those kind of people or address something that's going on?
I don't think it's so much a responsibility. More, I think music and all the creative arts have a role to play, no matter what situation the world finds it in, because people will always need music. I don't feel there's a duty to write a song about climate change unless that's what you want to do. But I think it's important I think for us, for Alexis and Joe in particular, it's important to feel a personal connection to the lyrics and the content of the songs. So if they're responding to something that is political or in that dimension, then it will always feel personal, because that's just the way that we go about creating the music.
Yeah, and I guess it's not surprising, because Alexis, even when I look at your social media, I know you've been posting a lot about Brexit, and even in Canada, I'm still trying to keep up with it, so I can't imagine what it's like in the UK right now. But so I'm not surprised that something you've been paying a lot of attention to would make its way into your music.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's Al or Joe that have been posting about it. I think my social media tends to be pictures of cats or my daughter or some music. But what I was really trying to say in that song is just that when, I suppose, people are... It doesn't have to be specifically to do with Brexit or Trump or any of the things I'm talking about now, but there was just a period of time where it seemed like everybody I knew and everybody around us was so depressed by what was happening in the world that it couldn't help but come into the music in some way, and I felt like that too. But the song is also about just some other more personal moments which have nothing to do with Brexit and those things. It's partly about my uncle passing away and me being with my dad at the moment that he heard that news, and that being a very sad moment. But just kind of trying to relate to other people around you and be compassionate, and talking about that and the joy that music can bring, or the joy that being connected to other people can bring, even if things are really terrible.
Felix, do you still get an opportunity when you're on stage to look out? Because I'm also thinking about music right now as an opportunity of escape, that you get like an hour and a half to not watch the news. And as I tried to mention beforehand, like to try and bypass the critical mind and just kind of dance and I also know that when you do it long enough, it's easy to just kind of get up on stage and do your job. But do you still get an opportunity every now and then to look out and go like, holy shit, like
Yeah, I'm into the functional aspect of music and dancing just as a way of releasing energy or kind of communing or being a crowd. There's a really nice feeling when an audience comes together and it feels like an audience rather than just lots of individuals doing their thing. So to create that kind of transitory moment in the context of a concert is a really beautiful thing to be able to do. And it's not like it's like 100% like that for an hour and a half when we're playing music, but just even to have a few of those moments is really nice.
Oh, I'm glad you still get to do it. I'm still glad you still get to look at every now and then, because you know what it's like. You can get up there and say, oh, okay, well, there's Biloxi, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, Winnipeg, all right. But
it's maybe time to stop doing it if you are feeling like that too often.
I guess so. Hey,
But you can only feel the way you feel, so just have to kind of. I think it's good to be in the moment, but you can't always be in the moment. So you just have to try and get up there and do
there's
what you can, and we tend to really enjoy it, And just yesterday's show in Montreal, which maybe is not called Yesterday anymore by the time this goes out.
6 months ago show in Montreal.
I spent a bit of time during the gig regretting the fact that my keyboard had been angled slightly differently, and it meant I just couldn't really see the audience for most of the show because I was facing off to the side, to the left. And so those things do affect how much you enjoy it and how much you perform well to the crowd. And it's important to try and get that right.
I want to talk about two collaborations before we get to another song. I wanted to say I'm so sorry for the loss of one of the producers that you worked with on this new record, Philippe Sedar, who worked with you guys and Franz Ferdinand and Phoenix, and he was part of Cassius. He died this June. I want to talk a little bit about what he might have brought to this record. Felix, what kind of guy was he, and what did he bring to this record?
I think he brought a different kind of confidence, a willingness to kind of push things in a bit of a different direction and kind of go out on a limb a bit more. I think he kind of added some coherence to some of our ideas without ever being very pushy. And I think he brought the best out of us as a group of people, which is an important part of being a record producer, I think.
I mean, that trust had to be there because you guys never worked with outside producers too much before this, right?
That's right, yeah. We worked with Rodé McDonald and Philippe Sedar on this album, and that was the first time we really embraced the idea of some outside producers coming in to help us. And Philippe was so enthusiastic and passionate and physically demonstrative about how much he was enjoying the music. You could see him dancing all the time that we were working on things, or telling us, that's really working, that's really great, keep going, make sure this is recording, never wanting to miss a moment of spontaneity or something quite unique that could be happening. And to be honest, that's pretty important to have somebody around you like that who's also able to say quietly, okay, this maybe is too much, this isn't working, or strip things back a bit, leave a bit more space in your music. I think we all just trusted him as soon as we met him and were working with him, but also we enjoyed the times in the studio. It was just really fun with him, which is that can't be overlooked, and made it all the more sad when the day that his record and our record was coming out, we heard this news that he'd passed away. He was such a fun, upbeat and loving person. It was terrible to hear that he wasn't alive anymore.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of moments on the record that I just instinctively think of him without, it's not a conscious process. I imagine him, as Alexis says, dancing to the music or being really enthusiastic about a certain passage of the music. It's impossible for me not to think of him a great deal when we're talking about this record or listening to this record or performing the songs from this record.
You know, to take another kind of hard right turn on this, I am curious about this because I know, Alexis, you did some writing sessions with Katy Perry for the last record she put out, and I'm also very aware that when you get to do something like that, they want what you bring, right? They want what you can do to bring into that situation. But I'm curious whether you brought anything back, whether you brought anything about, you know, writing that kind of music, you know, existing in that sort of top 40 pop world, anything back to the band?
Well, it was definitely really exciting to work with her and with her engineer and co-songwriter in terms of how quickly they could come up with very good pop hooks. So Joe and I worked with them, and we had some demos, we had some melodies and words and production, chord structures, but sometimes what we would present, which we deliberately left, you know, space for Katy Perry to do what she needed to do, sometimes it was really depressing to see just how much better the melodies would be that she'd come up with in a matter of minutes, how much more they travelled across the kind of the stave, whatever. There just seemed to be a lot of movement in her writing, and it was exciting and really immediate. And so I guess I came away from the sessions feeling inspired to make pop music, and what I do in Hot Chip and outside of Hot Chip sometimes is very pop, and sometimes it's more experimental and more left field and not really thinking about top 40 and stuff like that.
And
But
this-
being back in the room with somebody like that really made me want to be pop again, and I think we tried to do that with Spell.
Well, Spell's the song you're going to do next, and so that kind of came from those moments.
Yeah, we kind of wrote that song initially, not the chorus that you hear now, but the verses and some of the melodies and the kind of whole lyrical idea about a spell you are under and all of that. We wrote that with her in mind. But we still demoed it at Joe's studio very much like we would begin any Hot Chip session. So it's hard to know whether it could have been a Hot Chip song or a Katy Perry song.
Guys, I want to congratulate you on the record. It's really lovely, and thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thank you.